Hey there, it's Christian from 7 Gaming Network, and this is the third part of our evolution of a deck, genesis of a deck, seeing it build and grow. So in the previous video we got to the point where, we'd reached this point here, that we've got a large number of cards that we've wanted to include in our deck. Some of them, or many of them, we've looked at putting them as 2-ofs with a couple of 1-ofs in there. So what I wanted to go through at this stage now in our deck building process is getting towards the final 30 cards that we're going to go and play our first few games with. So again, what I do now is I pass over and I say, right, which are the ones that are absolutely essential? Like, I'm just not going to not include these cards in a deck like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build a whole separate pile so I can easily count up how many I'm getting to. So, ones that are from each section that I just know I'm going to include. So let's have a look at these. So I'm definitely going to be including the 2 Kylo Ren's lightsabers. I'm going to be including those 2 vibro knives, just for definite, like they're absolutely going in. I'm going to be including the 2 Force throws, for definite they're going in. The 2 Sith holocron, definitely going in. The 2 Binds All Things, definitely going in. We've got lots of things that we're playing. That will use that. The 4 speeds, they're definitely going in. See, we're already at 12 cards. This is where you start, and look at all these cool cards that we've got available to put in. Right, we're definitely sticking in Force Strike. It's so strong. We're definitely going to include lightsaber throw because we're all about damage. We want to be making sure we're dishing out the damage here. The Now You Will Die. I mean, that's got to go in. I think it's going to really do us well. No Mercy. I think it's got to go in. Crikey, we're at 20 cards, so we're getting close already. And I haven't got any mitigation in of any variety at this stage. I'm going to put in 2 Isolation. I think one of the decks that we are going to be struggling with is decks that are really fast with really good character dice, i.e. a bit like mirror type matches up against other Vader decks, up against all the Emperor, those kind of things, those kind of decks. And Isolation will be really strong against those kind of decks. So we're at 22 cards. Now I feel like we need to get some more upgrades in. We've got quite a few events in, but I want us to have some more upgrades in. Bearing in mind our resources may be an issue, let's go for 2 Makashi Training. It's a new card, I want to see what it's like as well. I want to see how it plays. Now we really don't have much mitigation. And there is quite a lot of ranged in the meta, that's very true. This is where, however, use the Force. I mean, it's slow, but we're in a deck that has Force speed in it, and I mean that changes everything. Because if we've got Force speed available, use the Force becomes so much better, because we can play use the Force as the first action, then resolve it. It basically becomes Force Strike in our deck. That's really good. Often we can, especially if we know we've got to be fast, we're going to be mulliganing for a Force speed. I think use the Force becomes strong in that instance. We're at 26. Okay, so this is where we start being really tight for our deck slots. Now, a Mind Probe. Let's have a think about it. It's got a 3 range damage for 1. That's a bit annoying. It's going to be different to what we want it to be. It's got a 2 disrupt side, it's got a 2 discard side, and then it's got its bonkers good special. Now the 2 disrupt and the 2 discard side, now they're not terrible in of themselves, but our deck is about doing damage. And that's where I kind of have an issue with this card. But what we do have is Now You Will Die in our deck, which is the one that allows us to resolve a side as if it was showing melee damage. So that just means that with those 2/2s, we can turn those into 2 melee damage. I really like that. So suddenly a Mind Probe doesn't seem that bad at all in this deck. Yes, we need that card to really make the most of it, but it's also got 3 really strong damage sides anyway. It's good. It's really good. If we stick a 1 in, we're at 27. And we haven't got Lightsaber Pike in. I really wanted to use that. We don't have a huge amount of mitigation in the deck. Oh, this is getting really tough. And this for me is usually where I start really agonising over my choices. It tends to be the last 5-6 cards are the most difficult I find to choose. And they're the ones that are most likely to change, usually. Because I think at this stage, some of these cards, again, you may be sat there screaming at me saying, why are you not picking this card? That card's going to be amazing in your deck. You idiot. Get it in there. And one thing I just want to check at this stage is I literally want to divide the deck into events and upgrades, because when we're playing things like Sith Holocron and It Binds All Things, what I want to do is just make sure that we are actually using enough events, and let's just take that out as a separate one for now. I'm actually going to put these off the side because these aren't going to cost us anything, of course, those ones. So just to make sure that we actually got enough cards in that we're actually going to be able to make use of It Binds All Things. So It Binds All Things is only going to affect 7 cards at this rate. Now that's not very many. Especially when Sith Holocron gets out some of those. And how many of these are actually upgrade abilities? I think only 5. Yes. Now that doesn't make Sith Holocron a bad card. That's still 5 cards you only get access to 5 free of. But it does make me want to think about either Mind Probe or Force Illusion to be taking advantage of it. I like Mind Probe a lot more in this deck for another one of those. Yeah, it's expensive. Well, it costs 3 with It Binds All Things, and of course it's free with our Sith Holocron. Oh, yeah. And we got 6 things that it's just not going to be relevant for It Binds All Things. Okay, so if we put all of this together, then what we see there after doing that little exercise is we've only got 2 slots. Oh, and look at all these great cards. I mean, look at all of these great cards. These are really, really good, solid cards. Still with really good options. I mean, again, some of you are just going to be thinking, why are you not including that? But this is where the interesting choices come, and I think this is actually where you get to the point where you're almost refining, again, what's my strategy? What am I trying to do with this deck? Well, we want to do fast damage. And we've got a bit of mitigation in there. So that's making me feel like Force Illusion just isn't going to be what we want. I'm feeling like getting some more upgrades out that are going to take advantage of It Binds All Things could be good. I find it a bit painful that these are both 3s. And we've got an interesting situation here of, is Lightsaber going to be better than the Lightsaber Pike? Let's just zoom in a little bit so we can do a closer comparison of the 2. Well, in terms of the damage output, I mean, clearly the Lightsaber Pike has got a total potential of 1, 2, 3. It's going to 7. Okay, it's got 7 written on it. The lightsaber has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with its deal 2 unblockable damage. So they're kind of putting out the same amount of damage, really interestingly. The lightsaber is more able to put its own damage through, and it has its own built-in unblockable. The 3 for 1 is not as, well, you could say it's not as good as a +4 for 1, but of course it's going to be able to resolve itself. And the redeploy suddenly becomes really strong. Now what's fascinating is I looked at Lightsaber Pike, and my initial reaction was, wow, 3 damage sides, it's got a +4 on it, that's mental. And actually, the more I look at it, the more I'm assessing this. I mean, a 4 for one reason or 3 for one, but it's black. And we've got quite a few other plus modified sides in this deck, with our Royal Guard, and I'm leaning towards Lightsaber here. And maybe it's a one-off. Maybe it's a one-off. Let's try a one-off Lightsaber. And again, this could be a decision that many of you are screaming out, but this is where we get to the point where it's like, well, how do I want to play this deck? Now I've got an interesting decision. I've got 1 card left. This feels like a really good place to include a one-of. We've got other solid cards that are dishing out damage, that are getting a good board state on the go, that are keeping characters alive, although we're not super... we're more interested in keeping our characters alive by killing the other ones off first. So, the price of failure is that possibility. I feel like the one-offs that I'm going to include here are going to be one of these two. And what is going to have the biggest impact on the game here? Now, close quarters assault, it could be so annoying, it could be so strong, but the price of failure with Vader, getting to go twice, that's going to discard 2 cards itself because of Vader's ability. Close quarters assault suddenly doesn't seem quite so good when price of failure is going to allow us to get a second discard anyway, and Vader to roll all his dice again. Okay, yeah, it's price of failure when I think of it through like that. And here we have it. We've got 30 cards. Now, when I'm at this stage, I know I could include those other cards. I know they could go in and be really good. So what I do is we've got that previous pile of cards that we initially considered and rejected. Now these are all cards that we considered and really nearly put in, but they haven't quite cut it in the sort of final in the final cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in almost in order of ones that I think I could end up needing or wanting or using. And I'm just going to save because I think the Intimidates could be really good as well. Let's see how many times I'm coming up against shields. If I play 3 games with it and there's loads of shields in every deck, well, okay, Intimidate's probably going to need to go in. Now what I'm going to do with this look is so just so you can see sort of how I might organise something like this. We'll go to objects, we'll go to saved objects, and then I'm going to create a folder. We're going to in the root, because the folder name, and we'll call it evolution, just so we know that it's this sort of little set that we're going to use it for. And then what we'll do is I'm going to save this little pile of cards into that evolution folder, just so that I know this is almost our sideboard. This is a selection of cards that we could come back to and include at a later time. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a talk about battlefields. What I'm going to do, because what I like to do in a deck that's very, very aggro is, let's go over the battlefields that I know really well. And I'm going to have a look at those. And what I actually feel I want to do is just get a bunch of games going. The battlefield isn't fundamental to my style of play here. What I've got to do is make sure I pick something that I mean, I'm planning on being able to take this the majority of the time. So it's got to be an ability that is really going to help the deck, but isn't going to hurt the deck too much. It's not an essential one like Poe and his Emperor's Throne Room. So I feel like the kind of cards that we could be looking at might be Separatist Base. It's going to help us to potentially do a little bit more damage. The Rebel War Room, we've got a couple of pay-for sides on things like the Mind Probe, on things like the Lightsaber, so those could be helpful. And of course the Imperial Armory could be really a nice one. It doesn't, in fact I think that's the one I'm leaning towards taking now here, largely because that is going to help us. We've got Sith Holocron and we've got it binds all things, but we've also got quite a lot of upgrades that we're quite keen to get out. I really like that for this deck here. I may revisit this if we're finding that we're claiming a lot and just not using the ability. Then I might spend some more time looking at all the SOR ones. I mean, we've got some SOR ones to do with melee damage and so on. But I'm just quite keen to get some games in and see how this goes. So we'll go with one that we know here. So we'll start with Imperial Armory. We'll grab our little deck bag, and here we go. We've got our list. And so what we're going to do is for the next video, see how it goes. I'll try and get a game or two, and we'll see how it plays. And just as sort of a bit of a caveat is that I'm going to be playing this deck for the first time, a new selection of cards, and so there may be the odd mistake in there, but that's part of learning, of course, not only the cards and the meta, but also how your specific deck is going to play and work. Might not spot the interactions. And of course, the other thing is that when you're playing anything on video and you're also trying to talk through it, that can very often mean your mind's in two places and you don't tend to play quite so well as you could do if you were just super focused. So I'm sure you'll allow me that, guys. Anyway, if you haven't checked out swdestiny.com, please do so. They're hosting 7 Gaming Network and they're a great site. And also have a listen to the Knights of Ren podcast if you've never done so, especially if you are more interested in competitive Destiny, and that's probably why you're watching videos like this, if you are. And also just to let you know that we've got a Patreon, and it would be really cool if you feel like you wanted to support me in making these videos. It really helps if doing this kind of thing is also making me a little bit of pocket money. It helps me to justify this sort of thing to my wife a lot more. And obviously it's a real blessing to me as well. And it means I can keep getting out some good content for you. And also if you're in the community, there's a lot more chance to sort of interact with me, getting our special Discord channel, which we have, and all that kind of thing as well. So I'll look after you. Anyway, so that's our third part in this series. Stay tuned for the fourth part. It won't be far behind.